Okay, so I think we are live. Hi everyone. So thanks for tuning in. Today we are showcasing team idea, and this session is going to be talking about all the teams that we have done during the GVDS section, and we will be talking about how they came to the idea, the challenge that they had, and what solution they come up, and we will wrap it up with some highlights and things that they have learned during the whole process. And for today, team idea, we have two team members on the call right now, Amber and Marido. So I'll pass it to you and you can introduce yourself, and perhaps also you can introduce your team members who are not attending the call right now. So, floor is yours.
All right. So yeah, I'll go first. Hi everyone. My name is Bel Maninas. I'm a product designer and design sprint facilitator from the Philippines. So I'm currently working as a solo consultant for companies who want to build their digital products. So this is my third time to do the global virtual design sprint. So um, I've had quite a lot of experience when it comes to the um, funs and tragedies of GVDS. So yeah, it's always exciting to be working with different people um, all over the world. And yeah, I will talk about my role. So I was the facilitator for the sprint. This is actually my second time for the GVDS. And yeah, we're a team of mostly people from Asia. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Maridu. She'll introduce herself and talk about what she did for the person.
Sure. Thank you, Abdul. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mridu. I am a UX designer from Bangalore. And yeah, so to be honest, I'm very new to UX design and I'm just getting familiar with everything. So GDVS came in the right time as a suggestion from Sandy. We're co-workers. And yeah, so I thought it's a great opportunity to, get to experience how a product is built from inception to the end result. So I just jumped in. About my background, so my foundations come from my graduation in architecture and then my post-graduation in graphic design. So I enjoy branding, practiced it almost for 8 to 9 years, and then it was time to leave their comfort zone and jump into something new. So here I am. So my role in GDBS was like I was the UX designer and mostly supported Yaya, who was the main interaction designer. I supported him with my visual design skills. Yeah.
Hey, thank you,
Over to
Marido.
you. Oh.
So I know that we have few team members who are not attending the call. Would you be able to give a short introduction to them as well?
Yep. All right. Let me just. All right. So I guess, sorry about that. Okay. So here is all of the other members who are not here today. So shout out to them. We miss you guys. So it was great working with you. So I'll go through them one by one. So this is me, and then the next one is Jason Young. So we call him Young. He was the team member and also um, helped the user research. And I think he was well during our sprint. He was giving a lot of insight about the product, and I think something that stuck to me about Hyung is deep knowledge about the whole field of UX design, and then um, products, and how he was also giving me tips about facilitation as we were doing. And then the next one is Fanny. Fanny was um, our lead user researcher for this sprint, and also filling in some of the roles for facilitation when I wasn't able to attend because of our schedules. And yeah, it was very great to work with her. She was very proactive and she took the lead a lot of time during the sprint. And then we have Yaya Ahmad, who is a UX designer. He took the lead for the prototyping, working with Mido. They really did a great job for the prototype, which we'll discuss later. So we have Mido and then Andrea. Andrea Pirelli was a late comer for the sprint, so they came in during the third day, I think, or yeah, third day. So along with Sied, they brought in they were sort of the experts for the field and brought different perspectives and insights during the sprint, especially Sied, who was with us during the processing or the wrap up of the sprint, who really had good ideas for how we would pursue things or like how we would interpret our user tests. So yeah, well, this is my third time, and I really like the chemistry of this team that we have now. I'm super excited to have worked, super happy to have worked with them.
Great, thank you.
All right,
So
then. Yeah.
yes. So I see that on the Miro board, at least I know I was also involved in the kickoff section of your team actually. So I saw the journey, but I would assume the audience here, they probably don't really know how you came to this idea of purpose-driven employment and how did you, like what problem you were really trying to solve. Maybe you can walk us through the whole journey that you had and perhaps also talk a little bit about the challenges that you came across or any highlights along the week, and then we can follow up with our solutions and what we come up with in the end. So, okay.
Okay. Yep. All right. So during the pickup session or during the selection of the topic, it was well. I think it, since I did this last time before, it was always a challenge because I would say it's always up to the team members to define what we're working on. So usually there's a challenge with the alignment in that part. So we had to interpret what purpose-driven employment meant. So we took out a piece of the problem after ideating using the W4 method. So what is the problem? Who has this problem? Why is this problem important? And where did it happen? So the statement that we came up with was entrepreneurs and small business owners have a difficulty aligning the goals and motivations of their hires to that of the company to have them stay. It is important to solve this problem because it improves company culture and employee satisfaction. So we saw this as a good challenge to take on because employee retention is a big challenge for SME owners because, well, in a setting of an SME, profit um, comes first before keeping the employees. I think that's a reality that we all have to accept or face. So we wanted to tackle that because we wanted to um, solve that in a way that's not as expensive as hiring an HR person or spending a lot of money on leadership trainings that we can't measure. So one of the things that um, or during those discussions we were talking about KPIs and how talking about a bit of how these SME owners and entrepreneurs think about this topic or think about the topic of um, employee retention and employee satisfaction, and then aligning that with something or like being or having a workplace that's more nurturing for people to stay, for employees to stay. Yeah. Oops. And then for the first day of the sprint, we came up with how might these after doing some expert interviews. So we wrote down a lot of how might we. Actually, it was funny because Robert was there, and we got around 100 how might we's, or 80, more than 80, I think. So it was a lot, and as a facilitator, it was very surprising. So we just did a lot of affinity mapping and then sorted things out and came up with two how might we statements, or the ones that we voted on, at least the top voted one. So how might we help SMEs start conversations with their employees in an empathetic way? And then the second one is how might we find a way to help small companies develop a recognition plan that shows appreciation of contributing staff across levels. So I think why the group voted on this was we wanted um, since the challenge was creating a better workplace, or like keeping keeping the employees in the company, we wanted to sort of create a company culture that's more empathetic to their purpose, to their motivations, to their needs, to their feelings, and things like that. And then um, how might we find this? How might we find a way to help small companies develop recognition plan? But this was to essentially um, encourage that kind of behavior. And so instead of just giving them a framework or having that people behave this way, we wanted to recognize that, to I guess encourage the that behavior more. And then after writing down our how might we wrote down our long-term goal. So is it okay to tell the long-term goal first? So our long-term goal was, in 2 years' time, SMEs will hire people who focus on creating bridges of communication to empathize with staff. So we wanted, the ideal goal was a company would have people who are to dedicated to creating a more empathetic culture, and then companies would be prioritizing that, or
Oh, I think we
Mhm.
just lost Amber. Okay. All right. Marita, would you like to continue on that? Will you be okay to?
I can try to, but
Yeah,
or
let's
should
just.
we wait?
Okay. Yeah, so maybe during we can while we are waiting
Right.
for
Is
Abba
back?
to he's back.
hello.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was going to fill it in.
Sorry about the internet problems. Yep. So I'll just jump right back in. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Okay. So we wrote down our long-term goals, and then as the sprint exercises go, we wrote down our sprint questions. So our number one sprint question was, can we start changing the conversation about employment so it centers on human engagement and needs? And then the second sprint question was, can we get people to realize the importance of empathizing with their staff? And the last one being, can we demonstrate the financial benefits of purpose-driven employment? So I think we think that those sprint questions were aligned towards answering the long-term goal, because um, if we go to it one by one, the first one was, can we start off changing the conversation about employment so it centers on human engagement and needs? Because the priority was creating a better work culture or workplace culture. So I think that is aligned to that, with well, that takes care of that part of the long-term goal. And then can we get people to realize the importance of empathizing their staff? So that's still sort of selling the long-term goal, or empathy to for the people in the organization, because they're the ones who will be putting in the effort, and then to the SME owners as well. And then the last one was, can we demonstrate the financial benefits of the purpose-driven employment? Is more focused on what the SME owners think, because as I've mentioned earlier, or as we've established in our discussions during the sprint week, was yeah, SME owners were very profit driven. So this is gonna be a concern for them. So we really had to have that question, or have that as a sprint question.
If I may ask, who are the actual SMEs that you're referring to?
Well, small and medium enterprise owners.
Okay.
So very well, smaller companies. I think we around less than 100 employees that size.
So if I understand it correctly, like your problem is going around this entrepreneurs and small business owners. But do you think that, or I don't know if you, during your sprint, if you had the discussion about, because normally, typically, I would not think they are the people who are hiring the new hires, to say.
Mm.
And I was wondering if you are shaping, or did your team decided to shape around the idea or the solutions around the recruitment, or is it just the owner from top looking at the company itself?
Yeah, it was more focused on the people on top.
Hmm. Okay.
Well, we thought they would be the ones who would be um, making the final decision in terms of investment, or
Right.
which things to pursue, as well as we wanted to capture different sizes. So for smaller um, smaller enterprises, they're usually, well, a lot of them are still the ones who do the actual hiring, do the actual interview. So we wanted to um, capture that still.
Mm. Yeah, the reason I brought that up for small, because for the whole GVDS, actually we have 3 teams who are doing purpose-driven employment, and you are the only team who are not targeting the hiring process. And I was really curious, like, how did you really come to that? Seems like, I don't know, like, because I was facilitating the other 2 teams, and it seems very logical for the other 2 teams to really jump into the hiring process. And but I also see, like, it really makes sense that comes from the top, because without the top saying like a purpose, if without the top telling us what the purpose is, then it's very hard for the recruitment also to hire the right people. So yeah, I was just wondering, how did your team come up with that?
Well, I think we sort of focused on, because our problem statement was entrepreneurs and small business owners. I think that's what really drove us towards that direction. And yeah, I think if we, well, in our map, we showed a bit of the hiring process, but we most of the votes there are like how the exercises went. The first user, or the first actor was mostly um those were mostly business owners or SME owners. So I think in that way that our team was aligned in that sense. Well, I think, yeah, maybe because of how the problem statement really framed us towards that direction.
That's cool. And I'm very glad that you took on another direction, because
Another
it
direction.
was in the end of the other 2 sprints, we were just talking about, it was really challenging actually to bring this new purpose mindset to the company, because it's just simply so new concept that people don't even really think about it when they join a company or even build a company. So yeah, very interesting. So let's move on to how. So you have your long-term goal, you have your obstacles, and let's see what you come up with in the end.
Yeah,
Yep. Okay. So
I would also like to add one point here. I think many of the team members are also like consulting and supporting entrepreneurs and startups. So I think it also gave us a gateway to look into that side of the story, you know. So like, how do you start from the beginning in a startup? There is a lot of
Right.
opportunity because these are the stepping stones. Right? Yeah.
Cool.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
So what I'm seeing on the screen is your solution sketch.
Yep. So our solution sketch is called the Empathy Ninjas. So yeah, this is our solution sketch. Most of the votes were during the straw poll vote. This got the most votes actually in the decider vote. Well, yeah, the decider chose this as well. So in a nutshell, it's basically a framework for how I would define it is it's a different framework for HR, or like the empathetic side of HR, or like creating a good workplace culture for aspect of HR. But um, let me um, just go through. So uh, in a nutshell, it's a combination of e-coaching and smart data analysis to complement performance with happiness as a KPI. So I think that's a really good way to um, summarize it. So the big idea is instead of having HR people, or like having a central HR person working working as someone who drives the culture, that responsibility of creating a more empathetic culture is spread across the different roles in the company. So it will be something that's an added responsibility or an added role for someone who's coming into a company. So that way it's more, yeah, I guess it will be more empathetic because they're actual team members. And then they would have the better quality conversations because yeah, they already have, they're already on the same level with other people in the company. And then we just added on a coaching and data collection element to it, where there's a dashboard where these empathy ninjas, or people in the organization acting as empathy ninjas, could actually be coached how to have better conversations about their purpose, about their motivations, and then having a tracker for them, or at least, yeah, at least a tracker to essentially measure the levels of engagement within that organization. That way, the stakeholders could actually see, or like they have actual data to say that, oh, this thing is working, or we're losing people because our engagements are low, or things like that. So yeah, I think that's how I would put it. Mido, did I miss anything? Would you like to add something?
Yeah, there was one more thing in this initial idea where like the idea also included, different plug points to connect, like, this can be a group of people who are addressing many other topics of interest which people can feel purposefully connected to, like wellness, environment, inclusiveness, and many other things. So yeah, this was the initial thing, but then like once we all sat together, it turned out to be something even more amazing.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for that, reader. So we'll talk about the how the prototype went, which was the result of the storyboard. So coming from that concept, um, we decided to go and build the landing page for the empathy ninjas concept to essentially answer the sprint questions. But because well, we went um, with a landing page approach because well, I think as the facilitator, I sort of influenced that. But my main reason was we wanted to um, we wanted to make sure that we have something by the end of the 2 days or the the day that the by the end of the prototyping day. So it was a big consideration. And then um, I think as because of how the exercises in the sprint went, the concept of empathy ninjas weren't as um, polished that we could actually create a prototype. So uh, we thought that it would be better to just try to sell the idea first and get the reactions to sort of answer the sprint questions instead of instead of building a more experiential prototype, which we actually talked about, but that would be harder and would require more exercises or more polishing of the concepts because that was, I guess, one of the limitations that we had in our GVDS sprint because of the scheduling of the team members and those stuff. So, yep. And I'd like to commend Rido and Yaya for the great prototype review. I really like I really like the artwork.
Yeah, I also do. Really, really
Yeah.
cute. Are you able to open the prototype and show us, or?
Okay, sure. Okay.
I see that you built it in Marvel. Any particular choice for that?
Actually, that was the call of Yaya. I think she was most comfortable with Marvel as a prototyping tool.
Mm.
Because, well, we left it for the prototypers to decide on how they would build it. Yep. And then actually, they used Maze for the testing as well. Although I haven't really explored how Maze works. Maybe you could talk about that later, Redo, if you're familiar with it.
I can talk about the prototype.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
All right.
I'll just scroll down.
Yeah, keep scrolling.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So yeah, so this is our landing page of the Empathy Ninja training service, I would call it. So how the idea came is like being a ninja, like it's a superpower, right? And it comes with a lot of hard work and practice and training. So we tried to stay focused on that as we wrote the communication also for the workshop. So mission, so you can see here mission focused powerhouse. So it's a very powerful statement which would invite people or at least the SMEs to read more about it and like let's find out what is happening. So and we are also promoting empathy here as a superpower to have, which is very important for organizations to have this superpower and also demonstrate it, which gives a very promising atmosphere for people to come join and also stay for a longer time. Yeah, you can maybe go to the next section. Thank you. Yeah, in this part, we mostly talk about like how important it is for organizations to exhibit empathy. And these are some data we found in the internet. I think this kind of a data can really help people to understand the importance. Like why would someone prefer to work for lesser pain and more empathetic environment, or why someone would choose willfully to work for longer hours for a empathetic environment company, So these are some data which we pushed in for to establish the requirement and why it is important. Yeah, we can scroll down. Yeah, so then we introduce that we're talking about the empathy ninjas and it. Abel, if you want to pitch in anything, please feel free.
yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
doing great.
Okay.
Sure, we can continue.
All right. Okay. So next section talks about, the data and like the analytics, which like, of course, many organizations consider it as a, foolproof, what do you say, proof of why it's working for others and why we should implement it. So it supports there. And it also, also follow it. And the data doesn't only just talk about why it is important, it also uh, pulls your focus towards potential ninjas in the organization, and also there is a way to train them. So it brings your focus to these people who are interested to get trained as ninjas and perform this. It's an extra work after all. Yeah. Can you please scroll down to the data and coaching part? Yeah, and there is, of course, coaching, which helps people get help who need help, who are struggling. So it also works as, connecting bridge between the ninjas and the people who need help and the potential ninjas. You can scroll down. Yeah, this part we basically try to further establish with the 4 quadrants of empathy, why it is important, and also how ninjas can keep a check on their tribe. Tribe is something like this other ninjas, so they can keep a pulse check up. And if there is any issue that is being raised, they can resolve it, find out what is demotivating, what is disengaging employees, and then further take actions or train them, further coach them. This part is a very important part, we feel like, where you share story, because employees are encouraged to speak up, what problems they have, and if something has worked better, not just in a negative way, both ways. It always helps to share stories to people. Yeah. And then this part talks about the leadership stories which has transformed and how people have found and results. Anything else, Abel, you want to add here?
Nothing I can think of. Yeah.
It's
I
more
just want to add that
about,
the illustrations are really, really cute.
okay. Thank you. It's not 100% original though. We like picked up inspirations. Super
Oh,
quick one.
you didn't have to mention that.
No, like
How designers roll.
being an
That's how.
illustrator, I understand. Like it's important to mention that. Yeah.
All right. And then mission board.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. So this is like a pulse check place where you know what is going on, your fellow other ninjas, how are they doing, how are they doing their job, mostly pulse check indicators of levels of engagement and stuff like that.
Yeah. Although this mock-up isn't real, so it's not actually um, our work. Well, our mission board. So we just wanted to show something as a mock-up. Yeah, but it's still, as Mido said, we wanted to monitor how your people are working, or like how your people are performing in terms of creating that workplace culture. So you can tie it to KPIs and make sure that it's actually bringing value to the organization, rather than being something that's you train people to do, but you never find out if it's being done or actually having some effect. Yeah. And then the portal. The portal is just the dashboard, right? We do.
Yeah, just a
It's a
dashboard.
dashboard, and then Ninja Packs is just resources for for your ninjas in the organization.
To
And
do
then,
their job.
yeah. And then from this page is actually just talking about the benefit of creating a better workplace. It tries to talk about the cost of replacing employees and as an average in different um, companies abroad, well, worldwide, and then just trying to essentially sell the idea better to the user or the business owner. And
Yeah, this is where actually we decided to add this section when we revisited our sprint questions and we realized that we haven't addressed the financial benefits, which was one of our very important sprint questions. So this is when we show the financial, like how expensive our iteration is and how this can help.
and what people say about us, just although these are not this is not real, this is just it's just
Testimonials.
social proof. Yeah, sorry, Dropbox. And then this page is essentially where they could buy into the framework and the platform. And they could get the coaching and all those stuff that they saw earlier. So I think that's about it. The pricing was still arbitrary. We didn't do um, any computations for this, but we just wanted to test how much they're willing to pay us. Anything you wanted to add, Ridu?
No, I think that's it. This is the call to action after
All
the
right.
show.
You even have like a customer service section at the bottom. I'm super impressed with the detail that you guys went into this prototype. Don't tell me you really built this in like 8 hours.
Yeah, it was a one-day job actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Maya was super fast with the wireframing, so it was very easy
like,
for me to do that.
very impressed with everything here. Like all the illustrations are like looks realistic. Like even like the copies, the text copies that you have there is really cool.
Yeah, amazingly written by actually everybody together. I missed that one call that day. Fanny, Syed, Andres, I think everybody came together and wrote amazing copy.
Yeah.
Good
Looks
job,
like
everyone.
It really
looks
helped
like
us
you're
to have a concept word, ninja. So it helps you to word it very tactfully, It really helps
yeah,
us.
that's actually my question. How did you guys come up with that name?
Well, it was the winning concept. We never found out who the who the original creator was. Did you know, Maridu?
It's me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, secret
All right.
revealed.
So
I'll show
you're the
you.
real ninja.
This
You're
is
the
the
real
first
ninja
sketch.
Oh,
here. Okay.
now we all know.
All right. Yeah. So that's why it had a lot of influence from the lightning demo that you showed, right?
Yeah, that was the lightning demo.
Yes.
Okay, but then why did you choose the name Ninja, Marido?
Yeah, because I wanted to make it interesting. And actually, in the beginning, when we were discussing, I did not want this as a additional work that HR does. So my idea is that someone has to take this up as a prime mission. Like someone has to do a full day job empathizing. It's not easy, and it cannot be a part-time thing. And I think in that stage there were many portals and there were quite a few things, but I think by the end of that session we all came down to a point when we realized that human interaction is important here. A portal or a pulse check cannot empathize better than a human. So yeah, so that's where it was formed.
Oh, I really
I
like
have
the
to say, I
concept.
really like the concept as well, even though I couldn't vote at the time.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, looks like you're ready to bring it to the market.
But it doesn't have feature
I have
or actual working features yet.
What did it? What?
It didn't have actual features yet, so
Oh yeah.
nothing is working yet. So it's just like this of it. Yeah. So it's a pre-prototype, right?
Yeah, beautiful
All
time.
right.
Yeah. All right. So I see that you have some, let's see, please. Okay, that's just the placeholder. So I don't know if you have done any user testing and if you could share maybe some insights on what you actually
Yeah.
found out, any expected and unexpected things that happened during the user testing, even like the experience that you had just during the testing. Maybe you could share a few things there.
Actually, the testers who did the testing weren't here, so it's Fanny and Young. But we ran into a problem, and as well, not that big of a problem, but I guess a challenge because we weren't able to record some of the interviews as the testers didn't really want to be recorded. So what we had was a different approach to user testing with Fanny because Fanny's approach was she created a answer sheet that um, what do you call it, that she filled out after doing the interviews herself, and then basically trying to answer those questions which are tailored around our sprint questions, our long term goals, and our problem challenge. So yeah, um, I think what we so here are a few things that well, Rita just pulled it up. The things that we didn't know or expect from before. So first is the disconnect between the user sentiments and their behavior. Actually, that's something that I wrote because well, according to um, the user tests that we saw, or like the heat maps that we saw from the user tests, was they have testimonials talking about, yeah, they agree that empathy is something that's important, or something that they value, but um, I they still are not completely sold to it. I guess the problem that was there was no framework for actually how to do it, or how empathy would work as a tool for an organization. So yeah, I think that's an insight that I had. And then
Albert,
um,
can I, if you hold down the X key and then
all
mouse
right,
hover to the sticky, you can zoom in.
okay.
Yeah, then we can read.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. All right. And then the next one is, although the tester said empathy was important, none of them really talked about the empathy ninjas. Yeah. So I think that's still related to the last one, the disconnect between the user sentiments and with their behavior. Because yeah, if we pull up, well, from the heat maps, their most clicked um, section there was the button to how to go to how it works. So they didn't really focus on the empathy part. So, but they would say that they value it, but they didn't pay that much attention to it. So I think there's that talks about that disconnect. And then oops, the next one is um sorry. The next one is wait, what's happening? All right. Part of our initial hypothesis was thinking SMEs need to understand and acknowledge the importance of empathy in the workplace. Testing revealed that SMEs already acknowledge that, and it's more about mindset to invest in building empathetic environments. So, yeah, I think that well, that's still really aligned for from the first with the first two. So, yeah, I guess well, as I said, they see it as something important and they value it, but they're still going towards how it will um, benefit their company, and then um, why is it worth their investment and things like that. So it's very practical. They have a very practical view of it. And then they like the idea, but I wondered how powerful the data can be, expecting the landing page to be more real. Yeah, so I think that's one of the limitations of this our sprint and what we came up with, because we just had a landing page, but we um, didn't have something that's experiential. Because I think we're building a landing page and trying to build up a working prototype in the sense that will tries to let have the testers go through how it would actually work would be too much load for us and wouldn't be realistic for in the span of a week. So, and then no one commented about pricing because there isn't competitors for a service they don't use, but felt the research and cost of attrition was helpful. So yeah, um, the the section that talks about the cost of replacing an employee showed that um, showed yeah well showed the sorry showed the cost of replacing an employee. They found it to be effective, but they couldn't really compare it because there's no service that offers the same thing as us. But it's still, I guess it's still an open field, an open market. So the point of comparison is only the size of the cost of the problem, the size of the problem. Then based on the heat map points, it shows that information would have led to a better testing story flow. So yeah, I think it's still there. There was a lot more interest on seeing how it actually works rather than trying just to sell them the idea or like um, making the decision of just seeing the landing page and then deciding to buy it right away. So I think that's one way to push this sprint forward. It's to build something more experiential, actually build the prototype instead of the prototype, as we said. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's all of the insights that we had because we had a board for um, our insights as our wrap up.
Right. Cool. So there is a question that came through YouTube, and I already
All right.
placed it on the Q&A section there. For those who are watching on YouTube or in a Zoom, if you have more questions, just place them on the chat and I will copy them over.
The how might we focuses on the SME companies? How did you target the prototype? Or is it more applicable for larger organizations? Mm, no, I think mm, this the well. I think with the concept, it will be more effective for a smaller organization. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not completely sure how it would work in a larger organization, but I think Rita would give more valuable insight on this because she was the author for this concept. So, Ridu, um,
Yes, but like when we designed or like finally when we carved it out, we did not want to limit it to, smaller organization. We wanted to come up with something which would work at any scale, which has to be scalable. So that's why if you look at the Ninja packages, it can go up to any like bigger size as well, from small to bigger. So yeah, that's how we crafted it in the end.
Do you think it will turn into like what do you even call it, like a white label kind of service? So in the end, it doesn't even call the Ninjas anymore. It may be branded as their own company thing. I think that's so. I'm just seeing like a little potential there that, especially for
Yes,
bigger companies, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
So they get their ninjas trained with us and then
yeah, I
they
think that
just
could be
deploy
interesting.
them.
Yeah. Right. So I don't see any more. I'm just reading a comment on YouTube. It says Ninja S M L L X L X X X L. That's the question. Yeah. Cool. So I don't see any new questions coming in yet. Maybe there will be later. We have around 6 minutes left, so maybe we can talk a little bit about what you have learned throughout about the whole process, or any highlights that you want to talk about, or even just kudos to your team members. That's always great to appreciate everyone in the team. So, and also saw just above the Q&A, someone put a really cool sketch with the team. I think it's really, really awesome. So let's just move to that sketch while we are talking about our highlights there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just quickly drew our team as ninjas. If you look closely, they have the same expression like our ninjas. So we are the
Can you
team
zoom in a
idea.
little bit more, Abba? So cool.
I like my hair.
Yeah.
That's good. So here's a photo of us during the start of the week or start of the design sprint. So
Yeah,
Are you?
I took it from a meeting room. I didn't have anything cool with me at that time.
What is that you're holding, Amber?
that's a no face from
Face.
Spirited Away.
It's a very
So it's,
famous Miyazaki movie character.
yep, you should
Hey, by
watch it.
the way, uh, Yaya is actually on YouTube, and he's
Yeah,
saying kudos to both of you getting all this too. So,
thanks. Thanks, yeah. I
We
hope
missed you, Jaya.
and
hope you
he
get
said,
better soon.
really, really cool. Like, wow, cool illustration. So
Thank
everyone loves the illustrations here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could spend a few minutes to talk about what you have learned and anything that you
Yeah,
would.
Mridu, would you want to go first? I think it'd be great
you.
to hear your thoughts being your first print.
Yeah, yes, I actually have a lot to share. Yeah, try to keep it short. Yeah, so I was really not sure when I joined GVDS, and I kept asking Robert and Sandy, like, "Are you sure? Like, I'm really new. I'm really new. Are you sure I can do it? Like, what will be the expectation? Will the team be entirely dependent on me? I'm scared to say that I'm a designer. What if I have to do a full-fledged screen by screen thing?" Because as I initially, like in the beginning, I mentioned I'm a graphic design who is moving into UX. So I was a bit apprehensive about that. And I think that was one of the reasons why I suggested to have a empathy ninja as a service, because it was more human, because I kind of wanted to stay away from the screen design. Yeah, but in the end, I feel amazing. I mean, it felt like a smooth sail. Everybody was very supportive. I learned so much from each one of you. Looking forward to the next one now.
Thanks, Mridu.
And since
Yeah.
your idea won, now you can be very confident and come up and say that you are a UX designer because your idea actually won.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adele.
Mm.
Yeah. So Emma?
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, for me, first, thanks everyone for being such good teammates. And I love the chemistry that we had. Every session was lively and full of discussions. As a facilitator, it was easy to keep things rolling. And then there weren't any um, long moments of silence, which is really awkward with the remote sprints. So yeah, it's great that the team were um, very participative. And yeah, I really liked how everyone was considerate of each and everyone's schedule, because people were willing to fill in and out whenever some people aren't available. So thanks everyone for that. So I guess the biggest learning for me now is as a design sprint facilitator and product designer is trying to um, get out of the context of the sprint in a sense where how do you test a prototype with respect to its product life cycle or product development cycle? So what kind of prototype do you test in different points of it? I guess here in our sprint now, it's more of a prototype thing because or like in the first sprint, it's a prototype, and then we could do something more experiential in the iteration sprint because we were directed towards something more like something more concrete, I guess, in terms of the analogy that they use, the metaphor that they use, where the a design sprint is sort of like a shot in the dark. So now, parang, like after going through this design sprint, we sort of know which way to go. So that's how I see. Well, that's my key takeaway from this one. And then another thing is something that I discussed with Robert earlier here. So as a facilitator, trying to make sure that everyone is aligned, or the team or the ideas are aligned throughout the exercises. So the ideas are aligned to the long-term goal, the sprint questions, and then also getting out of that design, the confines of the sprint. Like, is this idea the right thing to do, or like the right, is this idea aligned to where the sprint is outside, or to where the product is outside the confines of the sprint? Yeah, yes, that's my 2.2 cents. Right.
Right, that's awesome. So we are actually over the top of the hour. 1 minute, which is not bad because we started late also. Just to wrap this up, I have a question for you too. Do you or does your team have any plans on moving the idea forward, or how would you do this afterwards?
Actually, that's something that we haven't discussed. I guess there hasn't been any like let's do this, but we did a mural board on the takeaways with specific questions. I think that's something that we could turn into a Medium article and share. So I think that's one of the next steps that we could do. It would be it's still up for discussion, and well, me, I'm still up for it anyway. So whatever the team decides.
Or the first step would be patent your idea.
Yeah, redo. Yeah, you hit me up if you want.
Yeah, put a stamp on it. All right, then let's just wrap this up, and I would like to you both unmute yourself and give your team and yourself a big hand applause. Awesome. Then thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you. I think the next section is in 5 hours, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And see you then. Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See ya.